Hi friends. What's the perspective like from your seat on this roller coaster ride we're on? Still very crazy for me. Now, I have a video or a journal to share with you. And, you know, I remember a feeling about each journal as it comes through. But I have to kind of not be there. My mind has to be disengaged for these things to come through. And so I don't retain memory of what's been said. But this one was written on, at the end of every Trecina. The last day is the day of Ascension. And this was written on an Ascension day, which was 10/26. And it was the first journal of that day. I have a couple of links for you that go with it, so do click over to the transcript to get those. One of them is a short video by Bashar. It just, I keep watching for why is it I'm watching these Bashar videos. I cannot tell you why. And it's really interesting, though. It's a rare thing. I've probably watched over time at least 100 of the Bashar videos. Most of them earlier on, but I tell you, I'm in a watching mode again, and they're usually like 4 to 6, 10 minutes. They're not long. In this one, he recommends a book, and it's called The Heart's Code. And it's 304 pages, and it's available free on the web. So I've given you a link to that as well. All right, so let's find out what's here for us. And hi, friends. I hope I may call you that. Though these eyes don't see you, the heart does. We're all one in there. Wonderful space. Now, as usual, I don't know what's inside that wants to come out. And that's one way to look at it anyhow. And I'm sure there are many other ways. I've been having fun lately doing more commenting on videos where before I wouldn't have uttered a peep. It's fun watching, self-observing, and noticing this is the result of fear falling away. We have many levels and layers of fear that we're not aware of and that we haven't identified as yet. And for me, they aren't seen until they're either gone or in process of going, and then they can be seen. It's amazing how much of our simple daily life is riddled with fear and such things that we don't recognize yet. The time always comes when we spot something new, though. And actually, I'm quite sure it's great that we don't see the whole blooming lot all at once. Got to admit, it'd be crushing. Too much for the person, the ego, the personality to handle. It wouldn't be too much for the star being we all are to handle, of course. Heck, she or he's handling it already, since nothing is hidden from higher self. Well, not that I know of. There's a realm or level of what amounts to universal knowledge. Did you know that? Have you ever touched down in it? We don't usually do so while in embodiment. Not often anyway, but it's there. Connection point is in heart, of course, which is a real portal to all that's unknown by the mind. The kingdom of heart, it's worthy of that name. Who we are inside is nothing less than divine. But meanwhile, back to the one in 3D. So, seeing all of our hidden motivations would be too much for ego to handle at once. So we get to see such stuff bit by bit. We invent time. Self-observation is so awesome. Though it doesn't seem like it to the ego mind, we contain the whole world. Everything we see and touch is really a reflection of that which is within. Have you come to the point, face to face with it, of realizing that simply nothing is what it appears to be? Has that happened for you yet? God, it's such a magnificent revelation. What it appears to be is pretty well not satisfactory. When you can see behind it, that changes, that shifts. But it must be experienced. The words on the page or in your ear do no good, really. They're insufficient. Mind just grabs them up, decides, sure, it knows all about that, and moves on, or wants to move on. Stuff and nonsense that is, but as long as we're in sheeple or sleeple mood, we don't catch that. That is, unless we're self-observing. Even sleeple are not totally drugged or dumbed down, and you've got to know that, since each and every one of us was a sleeple at some point, maybe even recently. I just love seeing the comments of the recently awakening ones, their amazement at what they find. I'm in awe of this life. How about you? It's no illusion to just be brushed aside. If you're in the state where all seems so humdrum, I can promise you this, you're in mind. Heart cannot possibly be bored. Love just doesn't get bored. It can't. Not sure why yet, but sure that's the case. Check it out for yourself, though. No believing me or anyone just because they say something and you've come to trust them. Let's look at that. For whatever reason, I find myself listening to many of Bashar's recordings, the E.T. channeled by Daryl Anka. I've given up, for the largest part, questioning why I do what I do. Mind isn't in charge anymore. Just to go with heart flow is the thing, and to do your best to stay focused in heart. Everything works better that way. Now, again, who knows why? And who cares? Certainly not me. So, as I'm both watching the videos and reading the comments, and I'm not really singling him out, as this is common, I find so many people completely trusting whatever he says. Now, I was like that once, more or less, not self-aware enough to realize I was giving some of my power away like that. That's how I see it now. Do you see? When we trust only Source and Higher Self, that doesn't mean we never trust what anyone else says. It does mean, though, that we run all that is said through our heart filter first. That's all. That's where both intuition and discernment abide, in my experience anyway. Don't know about you. So the net result of that is that once we've come to this empowered state, we find ourselves standing always just a step back from what appears. We don't buy into the matrix so much anymore, as we can all admit we once did. We've disidentified. Do you see? We no longer really believe we're the body, the mind, and a big difference it makes. Now, at first, it may seem subtle. Mind doesn't really get this, since it was the mind doing all of that trusting. It figures that if it has vetted someone, then, well, of course you trust them. It just makes sense, right? Well, we're not operating on that level anymore. We've stepped up in frequency. We occupy a new space, and it's really cool. What I notice too is that I'm at least somewhat the observer of this life, not the character anymore. Now, I'm sure many of you are right with me in this. And that's maybe just another way to say we're not identified or identified so much with the avatar, the body-mind, like we once were, as we once were. It's a more empowered state, though nothing yet like it's headed for. We've got empowerment coming up that mind can't even imagine. Meanwhile, though, it's best to stay glued to the space we are in, to the now here. Portal to the nowhere. All the goodies, the presents, are delivered to the now here. So if we're off sawing logs in the past or dreaming up the future, well, no one's home. Not really. Now sure, the body is occupied, awake, but we, the real I that we are, we're not there. We've gotten distracted and looked to mind for the cause. But again, the cause, the why, is far less important than just coming back home to be here and now in this space. Parenthetically, I'm using words, of course, and I recognize how inadequate they are, so stay centered to get what is truly meant. The message is not in the words. It's also now here where heart speaks to us 24/7, all the time. So we won't be able to tune into that if we're AWOL, absent without leave, off wandering in time, past and future. Now, how much resistance do you have to this? Pay attention to it. Don't shove it down or brush it off. Best to note it. Get the feel of from where it might arise. You're being shown that. It's a gift. You see, every moment is part of a communication between you and your own higher self or source. That's right, every moment, every thought. Doesn't matter what the origin of it is. Source is all. You are all. Contain it. Spread those wings. Everything you see, hear, touch, and taste is a part of it too. This communication. It's all source. It's all God, right? Well then, how much do you truly believe that it is? If you don't, you'll find it hard tuning in to what's being said. So, when you see or hear of something you'd like to make your own, pay attention to how that goes. You may be able to claim it and have it take place, start working for you right away. That would indicate that you've done the proper gardening work in your internal belief garden to make room for the new beautiful plant, the new belief you want to adopt. There are no weeds, no opposing beliefs in the way. Oh, well, that's kind of rare though, but anyhow, it's possible. However, when we find any sort of resistance to something we want to claim like that, some new belief such as anything's possible or God talks to you 24/7, well, it pays to watch things closely, really intently self-observe. That resistance is talking to you. Bank on it. Maybe keep reminding yourself that everything, simply everyone and everything, is just source. And source is talking to you. Not the body mind, to you. That way you hold open the door to the new belief. And that's your response to what source said. Your part of the conversation. It's totally cool once you start seeing things this way. Do you get the sense of it? Awesome. A 24/7 conversation with Source. So consider. Now your life is running clearly on at least two tracks. The superficial one of what's happening physically, and your ongoing divine conversation. You pay attention to both, yet now it begins to get ever more easy to remember more of who and what you are. Just this much distance between you and being totally identified with 3D does the trick. Placing that distance by disidentifying this way is part of what you're really saying to Source, and Source always hears and responds. You can totally count on that too. It's all a matter of learning to hear the new language that you're practicing, the divine conversation that's not said in words. Now, sometimes Source will use words, of course, someone else's, your own. By keeping at least a part of your attention on heart, you'll be able to hear them and know what they mean more often than not. You'll be hearing on both tracks, 3D and divine. Like I said, it's cool. Actually, we're all doing this already, quite naturally. Most of us just haven't recognized it yet, but I bet many have now just by hearing or reading this. You're already good at carrying on this exchange, really you are. Every thought, word, and deed are all a part of it. Source hears it all and responds, always. And there's no need to keep it all in the subconscious, open to more of the self. That Source hears it all and responds, that's the missing part in most cases. We're not used to trusting Source that much to know that Source will respond. We've given up. We don't look for the answer, mostly because we're not there. We're not home, not in heart nor in the now here. We're in mind. I can feel so many of you quietly going over your recent experiences and conversations in light of this new perspective. And that's fine, but it's also something heart and mind can do for you while you continue to keep the self right now and here. In other words, pay attention. You distract me when too many of you get distracted that way. I'm always tuned in to you. And so are you, really. So are we all. But it's like that divine conversation we've been talking about here. All right, smart Alec. Let's not go there. Excuse me. Somebody's being funny. Okay, it's like that divine conversation we've been talking about here. We were always responding to life in every thought, word, and deed, but we didn't yet realize that life was responding just as much to us. We thought it was out there, you see. So we let those responses fall on deaf ears, so to speak. Well, no more. That was part of our sleeple mode, which is just what we're shedding more and more. It's getting lightning fast, too, the pace of it all. That's another reason it pays to get really good at this centering thing, right in the middle of the now and right here. That's where we're poised to be totally in tune with Source and our own intuition, our internal guidance mechanism. Now, maybe that's enough. I will mention, though, just like I mentioned above, when so many got distracted, that it's so easy to do. Getting distracted is what we're used to, being led around by the nose by our mind, hamster wheeling along. As we move more and more to take our power back in so many ways, here's another one. Are you ready? A way to empower the mind. Yeah, believe it or not, we can empower our mind too. Or rather, empower ourselves by recognizing that mind is really more powerful, more agile, and more resourceful than what we generally realize and give it credit for. Mind is more than able to go off on a mission for you, to go over something and bring back to you the results. Thus, when you come across something you want to give some thought to, but you're doing something else, you can take a micro pause and give that assignment to mind. And then continue on with what you were doing before. Meanwhile, mind can do one heck of a lot of work for you on the subconscious level. It doesn't require your presence there all the time with it. This is also what comes of disidentifying with body and mind, of realizing that you are spirit, not flesh. It lets you step back just those few steps and gives you room to breathe. It also opens up many new perspectives on things to which you were too close to see well before. Do you see? The more we continue to identify with inner self or higher self, the more the winds of spirit can blow through our consciousness. This too is all a part of the divine conversation, your own personal dialogue with Source. And yes, you are that important, and Source is that magnificent. So be dropping all the crap we've been brought up on, huh? I can feel a few of you feeling unworthy of having such a dialogue. You think Source too big and you too small and unimportant. Well, that's really great. Do you know why? It's Source's response to you, highlighting what particular beliefs are in your way. Source is not only that close to you, you are Source, but we don't have to rush right into that. We're here in 3D because we chose to take such things step by step. It's why we invent time. So, as I said much earlier on, closely note all resistance as it crops up. It's not bad. It's not something to feel bad about. It's just what is, huh? Look at it. Take a spirit picture of it to preserve it for your later contemplation, for your now contemplation. Resistance and simply everything is a part of the ongoing divine conversation. It is Source pointing you in just the right direction to make the swiftest progress in attaining your heart's desires. Source desires to say yes to everything. We've just got to cooperate. One of the things that may be in the way of owning this belief in the ongoing conversation is your belief that the outside world even exists. It's time to remember, because we all know all of this already. I'm not telling you anything new. To remember that there is nothing in existence, or even in non-existence, that isn't Source. Every rock, every sound, everyone, every ET, simply everything is only Source. All of cosmos is held within the body of Source. So are you. By adopting this belief first, that smooths the way to come into deeper acceptance of the presence of the divine conversation in every moment, every microsecond of your life. As you begin to take this understanding on, it will also open your eyes, your perceptions to the ongoing divine conversation being carried on by everyone else. You'll learn a lot that way, just quietly watching, knowing that this is going on. Hey, this observing is powerful stuff. It wouldn't be, I guess, except for the divine conversation aspect of things. Ultimately, this can be seen as simply another perspective on life. There are an infinite number of them. That's what re-embodiment is all about. Coming in again and yet again to try the whole thing out from yet another angle. Source is so abundantly resourceful. It's simply amazing. Wow. Okay, so this one was just a few days ago, the 26th. I guess I'll add a comment here that's not really related to this particular journal. But ever since my friend Ken saw and told me about the beings on 5D that were working with me that are really from 12D, I've had an ongoing conversation with them. Now, it's not a 24/7 thing. When we do this, we raise our frequency and our vibration, and that has an impact on the body-mind. It's hard on the body-mind. That's why we've been going through the challenges that we've been going through. What makes them challenges is how they're hard on the body-mind to keep rising and rising and ever rising in frequency so we can get over this hump and shift, make the great shift. And so I don't talk to them all the time. And generally when I do, I've got the keyboard going to record it because you know me and mind, which is memory. And I've kept them private, all but one that I shared. And I've been studying them, but it seems the time has come to share them. I had no intentions around that, one way or the other. If I had any intentions, it would have been not to share them, but I'm open. And I realize that things like this are precious. It's been precious for me and my development, and I'm nothing that you're not. I'm nothing special. What they're saying to me isn't, there isn't a me that's separate from you, my friends. We're all one. I don't know exactly how I'm going to do this, how I'm going to carry it off. I don't have the computer wizardry to have two little beings, you know, to show how the conversation is going. So when I published the first one, I didn't even read it. I just tacked it on to the journal and mentioned it in the journal titles so that you'd know it was there if you wanted to click over to scribed. So anyway, I thought I'd share that with you. So maybe that's the shift the journals will be taking for a while. I have this one and just one more that I wrote yesterday that, you know, are the only two so far not online. And if you're hearing this, obviously, this one's online. So anyway, I guess just a peek into the future there. And any feedback of yours is always welcome. Namaste. Of Ascension, and this was written on an Ascension day, which was 10/26, and it was the first journal of that day. I have a couple of links for you that go with it, so do click over to the transcript to get those. One of them is a short video by Bashar. It just, I keep watching for why is it I'm watching these Bashar videos. I cannot tell you why. And it's really interesting, though. It's a rare thing. I've probably watched over time at least 100 of the Bashar videos. Most of them earlier on, but I tell you, I'm in a watching mode again, and they're usually like 4 to 6 10-minute videos where before I wouldn't have uttered a peep. It's fun watching, self-observing, and noticing this is the result of fear falling away. We have many levels and layers of fear that we're not aware of and that we haven't identified as yet. And for me, they aren't seen until they're either gone or in process of going, and then they can be seen. It's amazing how much of our simple daily life is riddled with fear and such things that we don't recognize yet. The time always comes when we spot something new, though. And actually, I'm quite sure it's great that we don't see the whole blooming lot all at once. Got to admit, it'd be crushing. Too much for the person, because they're not long. In this one, he recommends a book. And it's called The Heart's Code. And it's 304 pages, and it's available free on the web. So I've given you a link to that as well. All right, so let's find out what's here for us. And hi, friends. I hope I may call you that. Though these eyes don't see you, the heart does. We're all one in there. Wonderful space. Now, as usual, I don't know what's inside that wants to come out. And that's one way to look at it anyhow. And I'm sure there are many other ways. I've been having fun lately doing more commenting on the ego, the personality to handle. It wouldn't be too much for the star being we all are to handle, of course. Heck, she or he's handling it already, since nothing is hidden from higher self. Well, not that I know of. There's a realm or level of what amounts to universal knowledge. Did you know that? Have you ever touched down in it? We don't usually do so while in embodiment. Not often anyway, but it's there. Connection point is in heart, of course, which is a real portal to all that's unknown by the mind. The kingdom of heart, it's worthy of that name. Who we are inside is nothing less than divine. But meanwhile, back to the one in 3D. Hi, friends. What's the perspective like from your seat on this roller coaster ride we're on? Still very crazy for me. Now, I have a video or a journal to share with you. And, I remember a feeling about each journal as it comes through. But I have to kind of not be there. My mind has to be disengaged for these things to come through. And so I don't retain memory of what's been said. But this one was written on at the end of every Trecena, the last day is the day